Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back.
Good
Sports
morning.
Ball Talk Show. Good morning. Joe Burrow is the highest paid quarterback in the National Football League. We've been saying this for closing in on a year now that once he got his extension, he would be, which, not that I'm going to claim that as some, I'm an NFL guru, because I think anyone with a brain probably expected
It was
he
just
would be.
expected, yeah.
But it's actually happened now, so good for him. That means other guys are going to be getting their extensions soon. Who was it the other day we were talking about? That's Tua. He's going to be due for an extension here soon because he was drafted in the same class as Joe Burrow. And although Joe and Herbert and a couple others got their extensions a little earlier than they could have, Tua's coming up on the end of his contract.
Right.
So this really is a prove-it year for him. But that's a whole different conversation. But Joe Burrow's now the highest paid. He got a $275 million deal over 5 years, so average of $55 million a year. Although it's obviously a lot of money, I kind of expected him to be closer to 60, just given that there are so many other quarterbacks around that $55 million mark. But it could be a piece of him not wanting to take too much money. So I think it's probably a piece of it.
Or the organization. I mean, there's only so much you could afford to the quarterback before you start seeing issues everywhere else, as we saw this weekend. I mean,
well, yeah, but I mean, other teams have done that, and like the Browns. I mean, whenever Deshaun Watson got his contract, that was disgusting. But now they have a weirdly good roster on paper.
Weirdly on paper, they have one of the
which even and they played well this weekend too. But once again, conversation for a different time. But I understand. I agree completely. Paying a quarterback too much is going to kill your team. But I'm kind of shocked that if he was going to go the team-friendly deal route, it was going to be. I figured he'd make $50 million, and if he's going to go for I'm making as much money as I can, $60 million. So I guess he probably just split the difference of I want to get paid what I deserve, but also not break the quarterback market, even though I could.
For how many years?
5.
5 years. Okay.
That's just what most deals have been lately. Is 4 to 5 years, which is kind of nice for a lot of these younger guys.
Decent,
Let them see if they can go do something. Chris Jones got his extension too.
Congratulations.
Not quite what he was hoping for, and I don't think not quite what the Chiefs were hoping for. But I think what the deal was, so he basically got a 1-year deal for not much more than he was making beforehand, which is what I heard. I don't know what the exact number is. I guess it hasn't been released yet. But what I've heard is it's not the money he wants. But what I think it is a Band-Aid to get through this season.
Right.
Now they have a full year to talk about contract negotiations instead of one offseason where it's going to, 1, cost him $1 million a game not to play, and 2, cost the Chiefs losses against the Lions by 1 point, because I think that game was close enough, came down to such small plays that if anyone that didn't play for the Chiefs, like Travis or Chris had played, that game would have been different.
Yeah, the playmaker, major X factor playmakers like
right.
that will make a difference.
Especially when they are top 10 players of any position in the NFL, like Chris Jones is. So good for Chris Jones. The Chiefs are going to be back with him. Still waiting on the Kelsey situation. He's supposed to be back next week, but like Ian and I were talking about before, we don't always know with those types of things. A lot of especially with something like that, they might just want him to, even if he's not injured, sit out for another week just to make sure he doesn't tweak it again in a game. Either way, we'll see what happens to Travis Kelce. We'll give an uptate on that.
This is the first time Kelce's missed a game in a very long time.
He's been very safe. He's been very healthy, which is good for him. Obviously being one of the best guys out there, taking care of your health is extremely important, and so him being one of those guys that does that is good. But he is getting a little bit older, and so it's just one of those things where you get injured more as you get older. Not that he's a geezer or anything, but for that position, being a receiving guy in the NFL, their longevity is a lot shorter than I think most people really think about. Most even really good receivers like Julio Jones, early 30s, and they're calling it.
Yeah.
And Travis Kelce's 34 now?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Kelce's pushing it, but he's he's got the genes for that. I mean, his brother Jason Kelce
should have retired 5 seasons ago and is still kicking.
Kelce's he's the heart and soul of that O-line for the Eagles, let me tell you that.
Yes, and he's fantastic. Probably one of the greatest centers of all time, exclusively because of the status he has. The thing that he says about the position, and it's definitively true, is it's really hard to rank how good offensive linemen are, especially centers. Because he says the center is the least important position on the offensive line, because what you're doing as a center is just double covering either the guy that's going for your right tackle or the guy that's going for your left tackle. Obviously, it's still an important position, but it's hard to grade how good is a center, because not that there's a lot of centers that don't allow any sacks, but there are a number of them that don't allow any sacks. So how do you grade the difference when their records are flawless?
Exactly.
But because Jason Kelce is such a staple of that team, and he does funny things like in the end zone. He's a little Uzi in the end zone, the little Uzi. You can't hate the guy. Also, Aaron Rodgers.
Oh man, heartbreaking.
Aaron Rodgers is done. He played 75 seconds, 4 snaps for the New York Football Jets, and tore his Achilles.
And he's definitely not going to play for the rest of the season.
No,
maybe a little bit into next season. I mean, age is going to factor into how quickly you heal from that.
Well, I think there's a good chance he just retires. Because he wasn't planning on playing for more than a few more years anyway, and he's obviously not going to play this season. He's probably not going to play next season because an Achilles tear is about a 12-month recovery.
Right.
And then, so 12 months from now, we're already into the next season. He hasn't done any practice with the team.
He still has to rehab.
Rehab, all that stuff. So
we saw how long it took for Cam Akers.
Yeah.
To rehab from an Achilles. And he's a running back, and he has to use his legs a lot more than A-Rod
Which,
does.
like, that kind of helps him a little bit because as long as he stays protected and doesn't get roughed up in the pocket, he could. But there's the not getting reps with the team in the next offseason, which is a guarantee. Unless he's just a superhuman, gets better in 6 months, which is extremely unlikely. But then, like you said, you also got to factor in his age. You know, he's going to be 40 years old here in a month. And so you got a 40-year-old guy who's already expecting to only play for a couple more years. I don't know what happens with him if he comes back. If he comes back, it would probably be the end of next season, maybe going for a playoff run if they make it that far. And at that point, do you want the guy who hasn't practiced with the team at all? Obviously, it's Aaron Rodgers. It's not just some random quarterback. But still, you got a guy who is not going to be practicing with the team for the next at least year.
Right.
And that really hurts the Jets, too, because now they're playing Zach Wilson, which Zach Wilson's, one, not a good quarterback. But even besides that, one of the things that we learned with this, and people
I will say he improved.
He did. No, he definitely played better.
He's definitely showed signs that he's learned, but he
only got one touchdown. Which once Bills' defense is tough, it's a divisional game, et cetera, et cetera. But the Bills turned the ball over a lot, so he could have done more with that. But the thing with Aaron Rodgers, and this is something that's been said his whole career, but it's really never been put on display like it has now since he's gone to a new team. He's been with the team his whole career up until now. Is his cadences to the offensive line are extremely unique and nuanced.
Right.
You immediately saw the first 2 plays after Zach Wilson got in was an offensive line penalty.
Oh yeah.
And it's not because
they were jumping false starts all the time.
And it's just
they're not used to him.
Right, because Zach Wilson has very basic cadences, like most quarterbacks. There's not anything a dig against Zach Wilson.
Right.
But Aaron Rodgers are so unique. They're used to that. That's what they did all offseason was learn Aaron Rodgers' cadences. 4 plays into the game, they're going right back to Zach Wilson, and so it takes some adjusting.
Right.
But they said they're going to rock with Zach Wilson for now. Robert Saleh said they're going to obviously look at their options with going into the quarterback market, but that Zach Wilson's their guy. But it really sucks for A-Rod because, one, he might not play ever again, and if that's the last game he ever plays, that is just tragic.
Very sad.
But also to not even get a full drive with the Jets. I can't imagine how heartbroken Jets are. Or Aaron
the
Rodgers
atmosphere
fans
in the stadium changed completely. I mean, you could see it in the players. You could see it even in the opposition. Dude.
Oh yeah,
everyone felt bad.
Yeah, everyone's, especially with as young as the NFL is right now. Everyone grew up being a fan of Aaron Rodgers, and like Josh Allen said that before. He grew up watching him and being a fan of his, and that's one of the things he was looking forward to is playing against him twice a year. You know, and being a divisional rival was that it's a guy that he looked up to as a kid.
Right.
But now he's gone, and